How are we doing? Good. Vaya. Welcome to the wrap-up plenary. What we have learned, where do we go from here? Moderators of each breakout session present a brief summary of conference participants' view on what can Centro and the organizers and participants of the conference do to support growing interest on Puerto Rico's economic and unfolding humanitarian crises and stateside Puerto Rican communities. What should be our priorities as conveners, network builders, sources of reliable information, and catalysts in solidarity movement? How do the roles benefit specific community groups given the state of their sector institutions and priorities as a social movement? Well, that is the general questions, or the general questions and general themes of this breakout plenary session. With that, I want to introduce our distinguished panelists. First panelist that I have here is Edwin Melendez. I think we all know who Edwin is. Director at Centro and the mastermind behind this wonderful conference. Lorraine Cortez Vasquez is the chair of the National Puerto Rican Day Parade. I think we all know who she is as well. Personal hero of mine, by the way. Juan Gonzalez from San Juan Bautista Parade. The Energizer Bunny of the National Puerto Rican Day Parade, Yuli Rafael Martinez. And another wonderful colleague, Luis Maldonado, also from the National Puerto Rican Day Parade. Now, I got one little announcement. You all have raffle tickets connected to your ID badges, right? At 5 o'clock on the first floor at the reception, they will announce the winner of the raffle. Is that okay? All right. Well, that's wonderful. I've done my bit for King and Country. I'm handing it off to this distinguished panel. Enjoy.
Thank you, Orlando.
Bueno, aquí estamos de vuelta. So my role is going to be very simple. I'm going to call the moderators as Orlando, introduce them, and they're going to bring 3 points, maybe 2, but 3, about what they learned in their breakout session. What is it that we can do together moving forward? This event itself is a result of what we did in April, when young people suggested we need to do a cultural education program. Here we are talking about the cultural ambassador. They talk about doing regional events, and here we are in New England, and now we're going to Florida. So the point is that although we cannot do everything, we can definitely do something where most people actually coalesce around action. Okay, so that's the goal. And after they present, I'm going to ask Lorraine to respond as to, if we were to put a strategy. I know she already said for Puerto Rico, the #1 priority is health, okay? And I endorse that 100%. But here in the diaspora, what is the more general goal for parades and festivals as a movement? Part of the solidarity movement with each other, with Puerto Rico, but also as a group, as a sector that mobilizes millions of people, the Puerto Rican people and others every year, year in and year out, primarily through volunteer work. Isn't that amazing what you guys do year in, year out? So where do we go from here? That's the topic. So I'm going to start with my first person on the left, Louis.
Very good, and thank you, Edwin. And I think, as I was jotting down notes to recap what we discussed in our panel, which was about cultural activism, we did come up with 3 points specifically. The first was as the importance of networks. And Let me see who's on my panel. It was Libertad from Losaida, the Losaida Festival. There was Adonis Banegas, who's from El Concilio in Philadelphia. Hector Rodriguez Agenjo, who is from Asociación Puerto Ricanos Viviendo en Florida. And then Jose Lopez from the Humboldt Park Festival and the Puerto Rican Cultural Center in Chicago. All great panelists that did contribute to a lively conversation and some important points that were discussed and recommendations. The first being the importance of network building, particularly to sustain and build and to try and establish a legacy and succession to continue to ensure that our organizations thrive, particularly as our communities change, as demographics change, as folks move out and other new folks move in. The importance of network building so that we can continue to sustain. Even though Losaida itself, this was a perfectly good example that Libertad brought up, was that as the demographics of Losaida change, they're still able to be an anchor in the community because of the networks in the surrounding area and the legacy that they've built, that the community comes back and that they continue to have that support. The second point was also the importance of being accessible to the community, to the community as it continues to change. So in this case, this was an example from Adonis from Philadelphia, El Concilio, where as the demographics changed, they realized that they had that the community had limited accessibility because the Concilio was then in the traditional location of the community, which had already moved. So then they decided to move their location to be closer to their community. But still, obviously, serving to be an anchor and to continue the work that they do. That was the second point. The third point in terms of fundraising, as we all know, is very important for us to be able to do our work, is not only courting those large sponsors, obviously they're important, and they're able to help us provide larger contributions of funding, but never losing sight of the importance of culture and also promoting Latino small businesses and artisans, or Puerto Rican small businesses and artisans, to find that proper balance. So that even as you bring in the larger sponsors, you're not taking away from the Puerto Rican-owned artisans and business folks. And then I think a thread throughout the entire conversation obviously was close collaboration entre nosotros. As other Puerto Rican organizations, many of us have similar or complementary goals and objectives, and how do we all work together to help support and move the community forward. I think those were 3 or 4 points that we discussed.
Gracias. Thank you. Again, Juan Gonzalez from Camden, New Jersey, Parada San Juan Bautista. Thank you very much. And I want to ask for a round of applause for Dr. Melendez Edwin. As mentioned before, he is the mastermind behind all of this. And again, kudos to the organization here at Hunter and at Centro. I mean, you're doing a wonderful job of bringing us all together, ultimately with the point of trying to reach a consensus, which is a daunting task, to say the least. Our workshop was the celebration of heritage across this country, year-round outreach to schools. And we had basically the discussion about what's the significance of Puerto Rican parades and festivals. The key element, historical preservation of our cultural heritage and exposure. As panelists, we had Lucila Santana, the Puerto Rican Day Parade of Springfield, Massachusetts. And she talked about the origin of that organization, which basically came about as a result of Hurricane Hugo on the island and the needs of the folks and our family members on the island, and how can they in particular here stateside help address those needs. Also the theme discussed on engaging youth, and that's the piece that connects to the schools and education. They do an excellent job there in Springfield, Massachusetts, of involving the schools, where I believe something like 65% of the school population in the public schools are Boricua, or Latinos, or in particular Boricuas, Puerto Ricanos, which is a big number. And again, they do a great job of engaging the schools and ultimately helping to unify the community. Another panelist was Ingrid Figueroa from Osceola Puerto Rican Day Parade in Osceola, Florida, near Kissimmee, in that area. And their main theme is the culture and the arts, and as an exposure and to the rest of the overall community. And ultimately, by embracing that culture and heritage, increasing the cultural pride which is a wonderful thing. Again, carrying that on to future generations, which ultimately leads to a greater strength of individual pride, which is also a wonderful thing. They also recognize community leaders as a way of showing the youth mentors and role models. And our third panelist was Debbie Quiñones, here from New York, Coquito Masters. And it seemed initially as an odd mix or odd fit with our discussion, but it came full circle. The Coquito Masters, which samples were given, which were very good, by the way. Here, Coquito contest. See, we had the best panel. We had the Coquito in the panel. I'm just saying. All right. Which celebrates the community at the local level and promotes local venues, but also preserving and that preservation of culinary culture, which is a very interesting idea, culinary culture through Coquito, all right, and which has opened up a dialogue, and then you're looking at it historically, and it's something that Ms. Quiñones, Debbie, very eloquently addressed, was if you look at it historically, Coquito represents our history, and you look at the imperialism, the colonialism in a historical context, and the resiliency of our community throughout now generations and decades and now centuries, where our culture's still alive. You know, be it from the sugar cane to the la cañas to the agricultural history there, and again, bringing it all back full circle to where we are now today. So by way of an action plan, the main points were try to develop a common theme amongst the various Puerto Rican parades and festivals and related to the education systems, where that we all as organizers of Puerto Rican parades and festivals could try to come up with a consensus and work together as a common theme. And I know we have the commitment from the National Puerto Rican Day Parade here in New York to kind of help be a base and help organize that common theme. With even there's a commitment to maybe trying to do like a teleconference to help further that development and that network, which is something that I know here Hunter College and the Centro could help us as well with, and as with the National Puerto Rican Day Parade. And to connect that also with the schools and through the educational system, one point that was suggested by way of the schools and tying in with the educational system is to do at a local level review or assessments of the respective school programs and their needs and what needs to be added, what's lacking, and to try to convene together and identify common themes, again, that relate to our culture, our heritage, and as we celebrate those things through our parades and festivals, and also reaching out to the future generations, which at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We're here today, but tomorrow we won't be, and if we, all of us here, could help carry that culture, carry that tradition, our heritage, our language, and everything related to our culture, then we've done our good job. That was it.
So I moderated the cultural entrepreneurship, evolving models of sustainability and commercialization. And our panelists included Margarita Espada, she's the annual Brentwood Puerto Rican Day Parade representative, and Maria Arroyo, who represents a Taste of Puerto Rico, Denver, Colorado, and Ana Valentin Jackson, who represents the Puerto Rican Day Parade in Hartford. And for our panel discussion, I guess 3 themes that came through with the in terms of sustainability was when we think of sustainability, we think of sustainability in 3 categories, which is organizational sustainability. And what we discussed as part of organizational sustainability was just making sure that our infrastructure of our organizations are in compliance with local state regulations so that we're operating the way we should be operating, and also creating best practices within the organization, because we're not going to be there forever. So we want to make sure that we institutionalize all the work associated with the parade, every aspect of the parade, so that the new leadership that comes on board, they have guidance, and they have a structure that they can operate with. And in addition to that, organizational sustainability also includes for us the development of young leadership. You know, we have a board, but we also have like committees, and that's the way we start training people so that they can take these leadership positions. We engage them, they get involved, they participate, and then they learn how the organization runs through that volunteer activity. And you know, that creates a pipeline of leadership to help sustain the organization moving forward. So that was some of the organizational ways of sustaining the organization, making sure those components are in place. But then we also discussed cultural sustainability. So we found through our scholarship program that too many of our young people do not know their culture and their history. So we as an organization, and there's other groups that talked about this, about just creating a seminar so that as part of your engagement of youth, they participate in a seminar where they learn about their culture, they learn about their history. And that to us is important, right? Because that feeds into what they do in our parades, right? It's not just simply about celebrating this organization that they're with, but you know, in our parades, we want to capture the history, the contributions of our Puerto Rican people. So we discussed the importance of that kind of education so that there's cultural sustainability throughout the parade and throughout the years. And then in addition to that, we talked about the bread and butter, what keeps parade and organizations running, which is the economic component. So some of the elements of economic sustainability that we discussed was how we go about raising money to do the work that we do. People raise money in different ways, and it goes from doing organizing like events where you're feeding people, or you're selling alcapurrias, or you're selling coquito. It could be anything, but that's one way. But then there's we talked about the fees that are associated with participation in the parade, but creating a fee system that doesn't inhibit smaller groups from participating. So having a scaled fee system as part of your parade operation. We also talked about using social media as a means of raising money, whether it's selling shirts on social media or organizing a campaign like the parade had done one time, where we called it Dale un Dólar, and we were asking people to make $1 contribution to contribute to our scholarship fund. So we discussed that, and then we discussed also like creating sponsorship packages for the different events that we do to engage corporations and other businesses that have more resources. So creating a sponsorship package that includes like all the metrics associated with our social media and our Twitter and how we engage in our community, how many people participate in our events, how many vendors, and putting together sponsorship packages that captures that kind of activity as well. And then there was also mention of raising money through foundations and doing grant writing for your cultural organizations and your institutions. So that essentially captured the different elements that we talked about, and having the Centro and the National Puerto Rican Day Parade as a resource, because all that we do is transparent. So what we do in terms of our organizational structure, what we do in terms of our cultural activity through our scholarship program, what we do in terms of raising money, it's all on our website, and we always encourage people to go on our website so you can get a sense of what we do, how we engage, and what our best practices are. So that was it. That captured the essence of what we discussed.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Florida, all of Florida, Kissimmee, Osceola, Osceola, Kissimmee, Orlando, all of you, because you've come the furthest, and we're really appreciative. Chicago, love being with you no matter where we are, all the time. Feel like my sister city. You've gotten one of my treasures there. You got my niece in medical school. And you have the movement that started the Freedom for Oscar. And we're aligned with you forever on that. So thank you. And you came to the warm part of the world today. Florida is suffering, but you came to the colder part. And of course, our kindred spirits that are real close to us right here, those of us on the Northeast Corridor, thank you all. New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania, yes. Thank you all for being here because, and Rhode Island is here, all right. And Massachusetts, Springfield, yes. I gotta tell you one little story about Springfield. Jose calls me, I think it was Jose or Freddie, one of them called me. Freddie, in the middle of the parade, this is like 2 days before the parade, he goes, listen, can I talk to you about, and I said, nothing. After, you call me after Sunday and I'll be more than happy to talk to you about anything. But it's great for you to be here because what does this say to us? It's what they said. We have structure.
New York.
We are the basis of cultural pride, right? And then we also have some best practices that we can learn from each other. Some of you do something better and some of us do other things better. And that is what we can learn from each other. Nothing takes away from the other. If we give and we share and we're transparent, it just builds on it. The other thing is using ourselves as a convening body. We have a home. It's called the Center of Puerto Rican Studies. The Center of Puerto Rican Studies. Puerto Rican Studies is under CUNY, but it could be a convener. It should be the convener, but that's what it is. It's a convener. It's not the doer, and that's what we always part company. But and so one of the things we made a commitment was that we will convene. So quarterly, we're going to have a conversation, a teleconference with all of the Puerto Rican Day parades, as many as want to participate. We'll try to make it at a time that makes sense with everybody's time zones so that we can talk, so that we can be an educational platform and build on each other's strengths, right? And then the other thing is about leadership development. You know, we can't keep talking to the same 20 people. You know, we need to develop other people, and I know, Puerto Ricans, once you get a title, you don't like to give it up. But you've got to really grow, because you know what? You give that title up, people still honor you for that title, right? People still, think that I'm related to the Hispanic Federation. I haven't had that job in about 20 years. But so it really is about succession planning and leadership development. And we never have to forget, all of us, and I think you said it so well, Yuli, and Yuli's so happy because he's like Edwin, I'm always like, I'm them. It is about democratic philanthropy. And what I call democratic philanthropy is, we all need the $5,000 and the $5 million donor. I wish one day I should have a $5 million donor. And the $50,000 and the 25, but you know what? Peso a peso se gana. También. 10,000 $1 bills is $10,000. And so it takes me, longer probably to get the $10,000 than it would to get me the 10,000 people to give me $1. I always said if I could get 1/4 from everybody who participated in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, I would have my scholarship fund paid for. So it is about democratic philanthropy. So let's think about ways that we can do that. You have some practices, we have some practices. Let's look at the smartest ways to do that, to get our community. Because you know what? If you're in it, you win. If our community is invested, and when they give you $1, then they tell you their opinion, and then they tell you how to run everything. And that's okay. It's a good thing to have. And then the other piece that came up, and I really want to thank all of them, because they all talked about the cultural pride. That we not lose sight, like we're evolving, and that we not lose sight of why we all were started. It was not a mistake that the first National Puerto Rican Day Parade was in '58, after we amended the law and repealed the law of '57, all right? So don't ever forget that. And we're all a business. We're either a profit business or a non-profit business. And we need to conduct ourselves in a business-like manner and have the highest standards, because people expect us not to have the highest standards. So we have to have the highest standards, and we have to impose that on each other. And whatever the not-for-profit regulations are in our jurisdiction, we need to honor those. So I think that those kind of structures that Yuli was talking about, again, we can share with each other's best practices. They will differ, you know, because Florida rules are different than New Jersey, and New Jersey and Massachusetts are different than New York. But there's a lot that we can support each other, and all of us will make mistakes and find ourselves in sand traps. And how is it that we can help each other? And my thing is to collaborate and really build, but it's about action. It's feel good is good, but it really is about moving forward and having forward, you know, and making sure that we are mission focused. And because once you move away from mission, that's when you start getting raggedy, right? And the last thing I want you to see is my gorgeous T-shirt. This is a prototype that already online. It just went online yesterday or what? December 1st. December 1st, and already the first day they sold 20 without us even finalizing the design. But this is the Lin-Manuel Scholarship T-shirt for the National Puerto Rican Day Parade. Yeah, come on. This is what it looks like on chubby people. We gotta get a thin body. But everybody, you know, we sell this, and you know, as we said, all of the scholarships are national scholarships. So the money that we raise goes right back to your region for those scholarships in your area. So I want to just thank you, and it was fabulous.
So this is fantastic, exactly what our expectations. Lorraine and I put some time thinking about what we like to achieve with this event. As I said, all this evolved from the April conference, suggestion from people. So don't think that your discussions are going to go to waste, that we really have a long-term agenda to create institutions that sustain our community. And we want to do that in a way that is inclusive and that avoids the pitfalls that other past organizations have gone into. So from our end, some of the things that we have done in response to all the events, including the LGBT and New England, and the ones that we're planning the youth one tonight, a second meeting, because we have a great meeting in Holyoke last September, I think. But what we are committed to do at Centro, as Lorraine suggests, is to serve as a neutral convener, by the way, because I'm sure here there are plenty of opinions, and what we try to do is just provide a forum to really coalesce around the few things that we may agree wholeheartedly that will be step moving forward. Having said that, there are 2 or 3 things that I can assure you Centro will be a partner of, and I will try to explain a little bit along the lines that Lorraine suggests, what is it that we can do. For example, one of the things on this coordination of effort is developing a hub, right? So Centro has invested through all these conferences a lot of effort in trying to, pull mailing lists together, collect, hashtags and Facebook addresses and so forth, and we made a lot of progress to that. Obviously, as a public institution, we have some restrictions in what we can do, but there is a lot that we can do.
That we don't.
Right, that you don't. But if we coordinate efforts, we can play good cop, and do the things that each one can do in the best way. So that's one thing that we've been working on. It's a bit more complicated than what I thought when we originally started, because to create a digital platform that combines all of us requires all kind of data sharing agreement, privacy things, and more than anything, the bigger barrier right now is the technology, the technical knowledge in our staff and our partners to really be able to fully use that capability, but we're working on it. And we have, some of the best in the business to advise us, and we're moving towards that platform that will be as democratic as we can possibly make it. And we have talked to some of you partners about how to do that. But that's one thing that we're doing. The other thing is that we have used the video conference methodology, as some people suggest, quite effectively to organize. So for that, at least until you guys develop the capabilities, we're willing to put it together. The best way to do it is that we coalesce in one place, like everybody, all the parades in Philadelphia go to one place, and all the parades in Hartford go to one place, and in New York, it's an easier way to coordinate than to have 35 people, which we have done, and Jose Lopez can tell you how did that go, right? I mean, it was a little chaotic, but we have done it, and we have managed to bring people together, so we're committed to do that. Now, our biggest investment of energy, at least for the time being, is this issue of this program that we're launching right after this conference, after this panel, which is called the Cultural Ambassador. Because everybody talks about learning history and culture and all that, but we really don't know what to do or how to implement the program. So here we put together some of the best minds around, Aspira, El Puente. We recruited Raquel Ortiz, who's going to make a short presentation right after this session, to think about the curriculum and how we can implement it. But think about it. How many years Aspira has been doing this effectively for a while? Now, Centro has developed the content, right? We have all our archive for once, have probably 80% of the collections that are out there in the world. So we have posters. If you go to the fair, you can see all those things. But what do we do with it, right? So I see Centro's role as what we do. We're educators. We develop the curriculum and so forth. But the parade brings 100 people to New York once a year. What do we do there? What kind of workshop we can do so that they walk away with an improved situation that when they had before? What do we do year round? We talk about all the parades doing year round, but exactly what is it that we do? Our teachers want to do this. How do they do that? So that's the conversation that we're having. And we have great people in the room. El Puente, for example, has been using cultural awareness in all their high school, through the high school, to make youth believe that education is a way to not just social action, but to change the world in a way that is meaningful to them, to their community, and to the world. So they're involved with the environment and so forth. So those are the people that we're relying on to take this curriculum and then use their teachers, their staff, and create a sort of a decentralized way in which we all agree this needs to be done. There's no one single public system in the country, okay, that teaches Puerto Rican history or culture. Not one. Not one. Yet we have staff around, we have people around and staff around that know how to convert all those products that you're going to see later today into things that the teachers can bring to their principals and use in the classroom, into things that parades and festivals, as community-based organizations, non-profit organizations, can take back to their organizations and year-round have a program of education. So when those kids write those essays, whether it's for school or for application for scholarships, they can articulate why is it that I am Puerto Rican? Why is it that I'm proud of our community and so on and so forth? So I'm going to leave it at that. Again, our role is limited as an academic institution. We can't do a lot of things. We will try to do those things, but we need partners. For example, the women are well organized in NACOPRO. They are as old, probably about 50 plus, as the parade. NACOPRO is relying completely on volunteers. So sometimes a chapter will go up, sometimes a chapter will go down, but they're here, and they're all volunteers. And when you look at Aspira, I mean, they have built, if you go to Pennsylvania, or you go to Philadelphia, or you go to Chicago, and you see this beautiful infrastructure, high schools, state of the art, with all this technology in the classroom, it only makes you proud, very proud. So the point is, how do we harness that to this project, to this endeavor that we're all here for? How do we engage our parades and festivals that touch 2 million people a year plus the TV, right? So we're talking 5-6 million, probably more, every year that we touch through the parades and festivals in a sustained way to advocate for the issues that we care about, the best way we care about. So I'm gonna, should we open the door? No, we shouldn't.
Like, can I
Yeah,
respond to that?
sure.
Okay, great. So, the Cultural Ambassador Program is essential. It is essential for us as a people, right? So that as many people as we can get trained, we can get trained. What would be helpful is that as part of that curriculum, that you have sound bites that we could constantly educate people, so that every parade could use that. You know, like, no, this is what Puerto Rico is. No, this is what the flag represents. No, this is, so that you have point counterpoints. So the most important thing about this ambassador program for me is that a people who don't know their history are at will of perishing, all right? And so that you really need to know your history. So that we're not arguing with each other about what's right? Because history will say what history was. And then we all have an interpretation of that history, but history is what history was. And so that to the extent that we can do that, because, you know, when we have the Oscar conversation, we're real clear. We put Oscar in a humanitarian concept, and we also put Oscar as a freedom fighter concept. You know what I'm saying? To sort of like get out of that ghettoization that they want to put him in as a terrorist. So we pull it out and bring it to other global examples. But we need to do that. So that's why I believe of the richness of the ambassador program. And so what the Centro has done is build on all of those institutions and the knowledge of those institutions and helping them have a broader reach by having other people do that. So there's nothing, I mean, that's the strength of it, but the importance for all of us is to how is it that we make it democratic and make it useful on a day-to-day basis for us in our world of 20-minute, 20-second sound bites and 30-second sound bites.
And I will add one more thing, which is to say, we gotta close, but I want to add one more thing. And that is the following, okay? Part of that training is to tell people what historical preservation is, how to use our archival collections, okay? How to participate in oral histories. Why is this important? Because our elders are not passing along what they did and how they did it. Oral histories are critical. Now, Centro doesn't have the resources, as much as we try, to engage in we have gone around collecting oral history through the whole country and doing what we can, but imagine the energy that you guys bring to the table, identifying. We had celebrations of our elders, we call 100 Puerto Ricans, in 16 cities throughout the country. But that's not, that ended a campaign, but we can't end the historic preservation. You all can play a role in that, but more importantly, it is formative to our youth if they engage doing this. Talking to their grandparents, talking to community leaders, just touching history. History happens right now. History is happening right now, and we need to capture it, right? Because all those people that founded the parades and all that may wither away at some point. So in any case, this is the wrap-up session. I just wanted to say that this is not just about reading, and it's also about doing, okay? It's also about engaging our young people in this long-term engagement. So I think we need to, we don't need to, but we have a presentation. Raquel Ortiz is going to introduce this concept of how do we educate with this program and these materials. The materials are there, you can touch them. There is, Ron is going to say how Aspira is going to follow up on this and why it's important that they do this. So anyway, it's going to be fantastic. Can I close, or you want to say that?
No, go ahead, close. I just don't want her to lose the audience because I think they need a break.
Oh, there's a raffle, by the way.
Okay, great.
So you want to earn your keeps, you got to stay for the presentation. Anyway, so move downstairs, let not lose one of you, and let's make this the beginning of a great thing. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.